Welcome to Beyond the Pages. Join us as we embark on a journey through time and wisdom while we unpack Bible stories together. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pages. My name is Barbara, and my co host Debbie is here with me as well. And we are so excited that you're here with us, especially because today we have a special guest, and that is Debbie's brother and my son. And what's your name?
Alfonso.
Alfonso, are you excited to be here?
Yes.
All right. So, we do want to remind you that with every episode, we have study guides that go along with each of the characters that we're talking about. And you can find the link to that in the show notes. And today we're going to be talking about a story found in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to 33. And this is a story of Jesus and Peter walking on water. And this story and Peter's experience of walking on water invites reflection on the complexities of faith and the importance of having trust amidst and even through difficult circumstances in our lives. And so I'm going to ask Debbie to go ahead and read that story.
Okay, verses 22 through 33 say, Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up to the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down, and those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God."
All right. So this story has different characters in it, right? But we're going to focus on two. We're going to focus on Jesus and Peter. So, what's going on in this story?
Peter walked on water, but since he was scared in the wind, he sank.
Yeah. So, first, they were with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning of the story, it says that they were with Jesus, but Jesus told them to go to the other side of the lake. Now,
Yeah.
did Jesus get in the boat with them?
No, he
No.
went up to pray.
So Jesus left them to go by themselves
Mm-hmm.
in the water to go to the other side of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think at this point they were afraid?
No, because like what could go wrong? Like it was probably sunny, and I don't think they were worrying about anything.
I think it was nighttime when they were doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. But do you think they were afraid when Jesus said, go to the other side of the lake?
No.
No, because they fish.
They were fishermen. That's right. So they were used to being on the boat,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's better to fish at night.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm pretty sure they were not afraid. I'm pretty sure that they were like, we got it. Don't worry. We're
Yeah.
pros at this. We're fishermen. They knew the lake, they knew the boat. But what happened after they started?
They got not even a fish.
Well, but what happened that made them start to become afraid?
It said that they were a considerable distance from the land, And then in verse 26, it says, when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, when they saw Jesus walking on the lake, it said they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear.
So they're in the boat. It's dark, like you said. And all of a sudden, the wind starts blowing, right? And the boat starts rocking a little bit. And verse 24 says the boat was having trouble because of the waves. So the
Yeah.
waves were pretty hard, we can assume. And then they see this strange figure walking on the water.
That's scary.
Would that be scary to you? Would that be scary to you?
Yes.
Why would that be scary?
Because if I couldn't see from him from far away, I would think it would be someone else.
Yeah, they thought it was a ghost,
Yeah, you wouldn't know what it was.
right? You wouldn't know what it was and you start freaking out. And then you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Jesus isn't there. And so what do they think? They say, well, it's a ghost. And they cried out in fear.
Yeah.
So what do you think they were thinking at that time? What were they doing?
For me, I think like if it was now, you would just get a motorboat and turn the motor on and just fly. I mean, just go in the water. Like,
Okay. But at that time,
yeah, they had no boats.
they had no motorboat.
Yeah, I know. But that would be funny.
That would be funny. So if you are in the middle of the lake, it's dark, and then you see a strange figure or something just gliding on top of the water.
Yeah.
I think that I would also think this is, I would be very afraid.
Yeah.
This is weird. Now, one of the reasons why we wanted to invite Alfonso to this specific podcast is because we talk about fear, or we've talked about fear and what fear can do to us, right? A lot. And we've talked about that because when you were a little younger,
Mm-hmm.
you used to get afraid a lot. Do you remember?
Yes.
Can you share with us some of the things that would happen to you when you would become afraid?
Sometimes I would become afraid, so I'd go to my dad or go to my room and lay in my bed.
Do you remember feeling something when you were afraid?
Yes.
Like what?
Like my belly started getting scared and I was going crazy and
Okay, so your belly would start hurting,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes you would feel like you couldn't breathe.
Mhm.
And do you remember what were some of the things that would make you nervous or afraid? Do you remember some of the things that would make you nervous or afraid?
Height.
Okay,
Like
being
height.
okay, being in a high place. Okay. What else? Debbie, do you remember?
What he was afraid of?
Mhm.
He was afraid of the dentist. He was afraid of.
Going to places where you didn't know anybody?
Mm-hmm.
And that's normal, right? Like even now, even today, I get nervous and I get a little bit, yeah, nervous to go into a place where I don't know people. And we talk about this with Alfonso because we have some of the same reactions when we're afraid.
Yeah.
For example, when I'm nervous or when I get afraid, my stomach starts hurting and I have to go to the bathroom. And that happens to you too, right?
Yeah.
And my hands get sweaty. And sometimes I think, you know what? I'm just not going to do that thing because I'm really, really nervous.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I'm not going to go to that place. I'm not going to do that thing. Has that happened to you before?
Yeah. Like I've never been to a store and I was nervous because I didn't know what it would be like.
Okay. And Do you remember some of the things that we used to talk about when you were feeling nervous, or some of the things that we used to do?
Yeah. Sometimes, like when I was nervous, my mom, which is the one I was talking, she thought that it was saying alert, alert, or I needed to go to the bathroom.
Right, because sometimes your stomach would hurt and we would say, well, it's your body trying to tell you something.
Mhm.
And sometimes we would say, okay, let's breathe. Let's think about what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it a dangerous situation?
No.
If it's not a dangerous situation, then let's think about how we can get through this, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes breathing would help.
Mhm.
Sometimes saying, okay, I'll go with you, that
Mhm.
would help. Let's say if you were nervous to go into a class where you didn't know a lot of people in
Mhm.
church, then we can try to find somebody that you know, maybe a friend,
Mhm.
right? Or I could say, well, I'll go with you, right? And so those are some of the things that we would do when you were feeling nervous. Now, I want you to think of Peter. Peter is one of the disciples in the boat,
Yeah.
and he's also afraid, I'm thinking, because he doesn't know what this thing is, a person, a ghost.
Mhm.
He
Wait,
doesn't know
can I
it's
tell you
Jesus.
something? In my church, I be Peter in my class.
Yeah, when you do skits and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
And you mentioned earlier that Peter was one of your favorite disciples. Why is that?
cause it's like he's brave, but sometimes he's scared. Like sometimes like I have to like talk to like a person in my class who pretends he's God, and sometimes I have to talk to other people, and sometimes I talk to angels, and when I be Peter.
In the skits.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you're right. Peter was sometimes very bold and very courageous, and he would do things that other people wouldn't do. But sometimes he was also afraid. And that's exactly what happened in this story, because like the other disciples, he was scared and he didn't know what this was. He thought, oh, this might be a ghost. What's going to happen to us?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, what happened?
In verse 27, Jesus saw that they were scared. So he said, but Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid."
Right. So Jesus realizes that they're freaking out, right?
Yeah.
Jesus realizes that they're afraid, but Jesus tells them, don't worry, it's just me. Like, I'm walking towards the boat. It's fine.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes ghosts are white too.
Right. Yeah. But in this case, it wasn't a ghost.
No.
Who was it?
Jesus.
It was Jesus.
Yeah, and it said that cuz it was scary because it said that they were like a long way from the like it said a considerable distance from land.
Like
Right.
a like a long way from home.
Like a long way from home. And it was dark. And there was a storm. And there was a weird thing floating on the water,
Yeah.
gliding on the water. So Jesus realizes that they're afraid, and he says to them, don't worry, it's just me. Don't be afraid. But this is where Peter,
Walks in the water.
yeah, he brings out his boldness and even faith, right?
Yeah.
Because what does Peter say?
In verse 28, it says, "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water."
So Peter says, okay, I'm going to test you. If this is truly you, then tell me to come out to you on the water.
To walk on water.
Mhm. And then what does Jesus say?
He says, "Come." And then it says in the second part of verse 29, then Peter got down from the boat, walked on water, and came toward Jesus.
Now, have you ever seen anyone walk on water?
Never.
Debbie,
No.
can you imagine it?
Not really, because like I've never seen it, so like I don't like I've seen like I don't know, they're like iguanas or something or like lizards and they can like run on water.
Okay.
And sometimes when we try to run on water, it's hard because like sometimes when we're in the pool, we run as fast,
But what ends up happening?
we sink.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we can't really walk on water. We can swim,
Yeah.
but not walk on top of the water. Right. But Peter says, Lord, if that's really you, tell me to come to you on the water. Then Jesus
Mhm.
says, okay, come, Peter, come. Peter gets out of the boat and starts
walking.
walking on the water. Now, why do you think that Peter decided to get off that boat and start walking, knowing full well that people can't really walk on water?
Because he believed in God.
He believed that that was Jesus and that Jesus was going to help him.
Yeah.
What do you think, Debbie?
Maybe like because when Jesus said come, then maybe he's like okay, and then he started putting little bits of faith. But then when when he realized his like the scene that he was in, like he was on water and there were like waves and everything, then he got scared.
That's what I was going to ask. Why do you think that he started sinking?
Because he looked away.
He looked away from what?
God. I mean, Jesus.
He looked away from Jesus. Okay, that's very good. So if he was looking at Jesus when he started walking on water, when he looked away, what do you think he was looking at?
He was probably looking at like all the waves and
Yeah.
like and then he started realizing that he was actually walking on water and he saw the boat and he saw like that he was doing it. But then he started thinking, wait, I can't walk on water. And then he started sinking.
I agree. I think that when he got off the boat, he was like just looking straight at Jesus and saying, okay, I know you're Jesus. You're going to help me do this. But all of a sudden, his rational mind started thinking, wait a minute, how am I doing this?
Yeah.
I'm floating, I'm gliding on top of water, and the wind is still blowing, and it's dark, I can hardly see, and the boat is behind me. And then what happens?
He starts getting really scared.
He starts getting really, really scared, and he starts sinking, right?
Yeah.
What did Jesus do?
He picked him up.
Yeah, verse 31. Well, verse 30 says, while Peter was walking on the water, he saw the wind and the waves. He was afraid and began sinking into the water. And what did he say?
He said, Lord, save me.
And immediately Jesus did what?
He helped him up.
Yep. Jesus caught Peter with his hand and he said, your faith is small. Why did you doubt?
Yeah.
And after Peter and Jesus were in the boat, the wind stopped.
I wonder if he walked back to the boat or if like Jesus like carried him or
Yeah, that's confusing.
Oh, that's a good question. Right. Did they both walk back together to the boat?
Maybe.
or like did he swim
Or did Jesus drag him back?
I don't think they know how to swim at that time.
Well, Peter
They
was
were fishermen.
a fisherman,
They have,
so
they have experience.
I think they probably did. All right. So, let's talk a little bit about what fear does to us,
Yeah.
right? In my experience, God has helped me, Jesus has helped me be able to overcome many, many things and do a lot of things that I didn't think I could do.
Mm-hmm.
But even when I'm trying something different or something new, that fear comes again.
Creeps in.
It
Yeah.
creeps in and gets in my belly, and my belly starts kind of hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And I start doubting myself. And I start thinking, oh, I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't know if
it's gonna work.
it's going to work. Should I even try? Should I even? Do you think that's normal?
Yes. Yes.
How about you, Debbie?
Yeah, I think all of us get it at least once.
Like one time we were in Virginia, and we went to this like water park thingy, and then we went up this like giant board thingy.
Like a
So-
canoe?
No, it was like
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was a canoe, yeah.
it went up
And then it fell down.
and then
yeah.
it fell down, and then the highest one was in the front, and I had to go in it.
And were you afraid?
Yes.
Yeah, he went on it.
You were afraid to get on it.
Yeah.
And what happened?
I start doubting, and I didn't go.
You didn't go on it. Did you end up going after all?
Yes,
Why did you decide to do it after all?
because my mom, which was the one that was talking, she came with me.
Oh, because I went with you.
Yeah.
What did you feel after you did it?
Amazed.
You were amazed at yourself?
Mhm.
Did you enjoy the experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
Debbie, how about you? Have you ever experienced a time where you were afraid to do something?
Yes, like the same time I went the first time that we did it, because we did it twice, and I was scared to go on the first one because it fell down and you could see the people on it like screaming because they were like scared, but they were like having fun at the same time. So that was scary.
But then the cool part was that they took a picture while we were on it, and I was like my eyes were almost closed. So then my cousin Isa, she went with me, and she said she thought it was the best smile that they had in the ride.
Okay, yeah. Because I think once you realize that first you're afraid, and then you think about, okay, I want to do this. I know God has given me the ability to do this, and I know that He's going to be with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have self control,
Yeah.
and I can learn to control my breathing and to stop and think.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do it, when you're past it, you can look back and say, I'm amazed, or I feel good that I did it.
Yeah.
Feel proud of myself that I did this.
You want to do it again.
I like praying for people.
That's another thing that we always do. And I think that that's one of the key things that we've started doing as a family, and that we started doing, especially for Alfonso, when you used to get really nervous. And one of the things that you always say is, can you please pray for me?
Yeah.
And when we're going through a situation, or when you're going to face something that you start feeling nervous and your stomach starts hurting, you always say, can somebody please pray for me? And we do.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
pray for you, and we pray that God remind you that you are brave, and that you are bold, and that He has given you the courage, and that He's always going to be with you.
Yeah, and then before he asks to pray, he always says, "Lord, help me."
And that's exactly what Peter did.
Yeah.
Because people pray for me, I like praying for them too.
And I know that there's been times where you have prayed for people that have felt afraid, and you have been able to encourage them, because when we have gone through something, now God can use that so we can help others. And so Peter was afraid. We can also sometimes be afraid. I want you to think of one thing that you want people to remember, to think about when they feel afraid, or to do when they feel afraid.
For me, I think they should take a deep breath.
Take deep breaths, okay?
I think they should remember to pray, and that you should remember that God's always there. He's gonna protect you. He's always gonna be there for you.
Yep, just like he was with Peter. And I think for me, it's about thinking what Peter did. Peter took a bold step, right?
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to do it. And he started to. And when he started failing, when he started drowning, he did the one thing that I think is key to do. And that is to ask for help and cry out for help and ask Jesus to help you,
Yeah.
right? Because he's the only one at the end of the day that can help us.
Yeah.
And if we cry out for help, he will help us.
And he was the only one out there who's doing it. So he was the
Exactly.
brave one that was doing it.
Peter was, right? Yeah.
But then he was scared.
Yeah, but you're right. That's a good point. He was the only one out of all the ones that were in the
Yeah.
boat that took that step. Even though he
Was
got scared, he still did it. You're right. You're right. And so I want to remind us that, you know what? It is normal that we doubt and that sometimes we do be afraid. But we have to remember that even through the midst of our fear and our doubt, we can still call out to Jesus and help us, right?
Yeah.
We can still, and even though we don't know what's coming ahead, what's going to happen, I want us to remember Matthew 14, verse 27, that says, "But Jesus quickly spoke to them. He said, 'Don't worry, it's me. Don't be afraid.'" And that's the same thing that he tells us today. Don't worry, whatever circumstance that you're going through. Don't worry, Jesus is with you. Don't be afraid.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Pages. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and make sure to hit the subscribe button. Until next time, stay curious and keep those conversations going, because every story is an adventure waiting to be explored.